Age 9. I'd only been home for 2 days, and already I knew I hated it here. Hated the way Mom always came home from work early in the morning. Hated the way neighbors stared and whispered about us when Mom and I walked out of the building for errands together. But most of all, I hated Mom's new boyfriend, Gary. That night I watched from the kitchen table with dread as Gary sat in the living room, the radio at one side and a beer on his other. I knew what that meant. Only I hoped that tonight he'd just pass out before Mom came home and they started an argument. I didn't know why I was still at the table when the windows were dark and obscure, other than that I'd had one too many Cokes and wasn't tired. I had homework out that was due tomorrow, but that at the moment was serving as an armrest. Last thing I remembered, I was watching the orange light that hung above the table, that was swaying ever so slightly, surrounded by a perfect bronze circle of fuzzy brightness like a halo. Then there was darkness, and a distant shouting. Had I fallen asleep? The feeling in my limbs slowly returned to me, and I knew I had fallen asleep by the stiffness in my back and neck, and the pressure of my head against my forearms. In that split second that my wits returned to me, the yelling became clear, like static from a radio being abruptly turned off. "What are you doing home early?" "Quiet, Gary, you'll wake Steve." "I don't care if I wake up the little brat. I can't believe you didn't score that extra dough for us." "You're a whore, so go be one." The words piercing the air were enough to make my body stiffen. But I didn't dare get up until the gut-wrenching sound of flesh hitting flesh that was as distinct as if Gary had whistled. I was up in an instant, my fists hitting Gary futilely as the chair I was sitting on clattered to the ground. I knew I wasn't hurting him, but all the same for a moment the forceful contact was satisfying. But then Gary's shock wore off, and he was twisting one of my arms painfully to keep me in place while he smacked me across the face that left my mouth stinging and head reeling. Without thinking, I kicked his leg viciously and wrenched my arm from his grip, scrambling to get away. When Gary yanked me back by the collar of my shirt, a split second passed when I locked eyes with Mom, my wild, accusing ones meeting her tear-filled, fearful eyes. The thought entered my mind before it was forced to return to Gary. Why isn't she helping me?